Hi, I'm Simon with AppliancePartsPros.com. Today we're going to show you how to repair your appliance. Are you ready? Remember, anytime you work on your appliance, make sure it's unplugged or the circuit breakers are off so there's no chance of electrocution. Also, make sure you turn off the water supply to the washer. In this video, we'll show you how to replace the tub bearing in an LG washer. It's going to be a very easy repair. Should only take a few minutes to show you how to do it. For the job, we are going to need a Phillips screwdriver, a number 3 Phillips screwdriver, a flat blade screwdriver, a socket wrench with a 7mm head, another larger socket wrench with a long extension, a 10mm and 7mm heads, a 12mm wrench, a 13mm head, a pair of large pliers, a pair of regular pliers, a pair of side cutters, a spring clamp pliers, a rope, some thread locking liquid, a plastic zip tie, a Torx screwdriver, and a pair of small flat blade screwdrivers. We also will need a penetrating oil, a plastic mallet, a chisel, and a heavy hammer. When you open up the package, you're going to get a new tub bearing. When replacing the tub bearing, you always have to consider replacing the second tub bearing and the tub gasket, because leaking gasket will cause a damage to bearings again. They are all sold separately and are available at AppliancePartsPros.com. The part numbers are MAP 619-13708 and MDS 620-58301. For your convenience, we have a video made on how to replace the tub gasket. The tub bearings support the inner basket, allowing it to spin. A leaking tub gasket will cause damage to the tub bearings and, as a result, a real noisy operation and vibration during the spin. Get down and open the pump filter door. Push the door hinges and remove it completely. Place a towel on the floor. Pull out the pump drain hose from the holder. Place some kind of a dish under and pull the hose cap out. If there's any water inside the pump, it should drain into the dish. Save the cap, don't plug it back yet. Remove the Phillips screw that holds the door housing and pull the housing out. Take out this Phillips screw that holds the front panel to the chassis. Open the door. To remove the spring clamp, I'm going to use the special spring clamp removal pliers. We'll start with exposing the spring, pull back on the seal, and then insert the pliers into the loops at the end of the spring. And then we're going to squeeze them hard, and the clamp comes off. So next thing, we're going to remove the boot seal of the right side of the opening. So we can reach in there, tack it in, and then using the Phillips screwdriver, remove the 2 screws that hold the switch. Push in the door switch and remove the door boot seal off the front panel completely. And now we can close the door. We need to remove the top panel in order to get it apart. Using the Phillips screwdriver, take out 2 lower screws from the rear brackets, slide back and remove the top panel. Pull out the detergent dispenser drawer, press the tab and remove it completely. Using the Phillips screwdriver, take out the 2 screws on the sides of the drawer opening and slide the housing out. Remove the single Phillips screw in the right corner at the back of the control panel. Open the 2 retainers. Pull out the harness and disconnect the 3 wire plugs by pressing the tabs. Starting on the right, pull out the top of the control panel to release the tabs and remove the control panel from the cabinet. Now we can take the control panel out of the way. And using the Phillips screwdriver, take out all 6 screws off the top of the front panel. Hold the panel so it won't fall off. Tilt the front panel back and lift it off the bottom hinges. Put the panel out of the way. Using the pliers, squeeze the clamp on the drain hose at the bottom of the door boot seal and pull out the hose. Use the opportunity to clean the hose and the opening. Next, using the same pliers, remove the hoses from both sides of the boot seal. Remove the hose clamps from the door seal. Also, clean the hoses and the openings, if needed. Now, insert the Torx screwdriver in the loop above the lock at the boot seal clamp. Install the clamp pliers into the loop at the bottom and at the top, and squeeze the pliers as far as it can go to spread the spring. Hold the top part with the Torx screwdriver and remove the spring from the hook. If you get the right spring removal tool, insert it into the loop and into the top spring loop and pull the spring over the hook. We need to remove the rear access panel. Get to the back of the washer. Using the Phillips screwdriver, remove the 4 screws. Slightly flex the rear panel and release the top tabs. Then take the bottom of the panel out. Now we need to remove the motor rotor. Using the large socket wrench with a 17mm head, unscrew the center bolt by turning it counterclockwise. If you have a second person, let that person hold the inner basket while you are turning the bolt. If there is no one to help you, insert the larger screwdriver into the cutout in the rotor to jam it against the tub and then slowly unscrew the bolt. Rock the rotor side to side and pull it off the washer. Be careful not to pinch your fingertips because the rotor has magnets that pulls it back. Now, using the Phillips screwdriver, remove the screws that are holding the wire harness, the ground wire, and the metal cover bracket. Total 5. The motor stator is next. Using the 10mm socket wrench, turning counterclockwise, unscrew all 6 bolts that hold the stator and carefully place it on the ground. Press down the tabs and disconnect the rotor positioning sensor plug and the motor plug. Take the stator out of the way. Pull the air hose off the air chamber. Using the Phillips screwdriver, take the 2 screws out and drop down the air chamber. Using the Phillips screwdriver, loosen up the hose clamp and then take the sump hose off the tub. There's one more hose at the rear that we need to remove. Using the 70mm socket wrench, loosen up the clamp, turning it counterclockwise, and take the bellow on the left of the tub. Move to the front of the washer again. Using the pliers, slide the clamp up and remove the hose from the top of the door boot seal. Squeeze the small red tab up on the top brace and push in the retainer clip. Press the tab and disconnect the red basket light wire plug. Using the Phillips screwdriver, loosen up the screw and pull the boot seal off the heater box. There are 3 10mm bolts and 1 Phillips screw that holds the top counterweight. Push down on the top and using the number 3 Phillips screwdriver, unscrew the bolt, turning it counterclockwise. Don't use any smaller screwdrivers or you are going to strip the head drive slot. Using the 10mm socket wrench, unscrew the 3 bolts, turning them counterclockwise, and remove the top counterweight. Let me remind you that it's called weight for a reason. Move down to the bottom one and using the 10mm socket wrench, unscrew 4 bolts and remove the counterweight. Using the pliers, slide the clamps and remove the 2 hoses from the circulation pump. Remember, the one with the red line goes in front of the one with the blue line. Take a picture of the wire connections at the water heater and using the flathead screwdriver, remove the red and the yellow wires of the terminals. Push the locking tab and disconnect the blue and white wires temperature sensor plug. Using the 10mm socket wrench, unscrew the nut, turning it counterclockwise, and remove the green ground wire of the terminal. Using the side cutters, cut the zip tie and free the wire harness from the tub. Next, we need to disconnect the shock absorbers from the tub. So using the 7mm socket wrench, we're going to loosen up that hose clamp and pull the vent hose off the tub. Using the 2 small flathead screwdrivers, pull the float assembly out of the vent opening. Remove the funnel after we remove the hose and put it aside. And next task would be removing the outer tub assembly from the cabinet. Keep in mind it's still heavy. And now we're going to put it on the supports with the front half facing up. And make sure it's not going anywhere. So it's going to be steady. Now we need to separate the halves of the tub. Using the 10mm socket wrench with a long extension and some patience, remove all the bolts around the tub connection. Pull the tub apart and store the top half away. In the next little episode, we're going to check how lucky we are. Rock the inner basket side to side, and if you can, pull it out. I was able to move it without the trouble. If you're not that lucky, turn the tub over and using a heavy hammer and a wooden block, try to punch the basket shaft out of the tub bearings. Check the condition of the spider arm shaft and the spider itself. If it's not damaged and only rusted, use the wire brush to get rid of the rust. Put the inner basket aside and get back to the outer tub. Using the flathead screwdriver, pry the old gasket out Let's spray some penetrating oil into the seam to help the bearing to get loose a little bit. Give it a few minutes to get through. Okay, now we're going to turn it over. And now we're going to use a punch and a hammer. And we're going to punch the lights out of this bearing. Got it out. That's an old bearing. Let's turn the tub over so we can punch the second bearing out. Let's spray the second bearing with penetrating oil. So hopefully it will help us to get it a little loose. Give it a few minutes to sit so it will soak in. So I put the punch upside down to increase the contact surface, and then we're gonna do the punching. That's it. No more bearings. Now let's get the bearing out of the way. As you can see, it's a little slightly used. This is the old tub bearings and tub gasket next to the new one. If you don't have these parts, you can get them from appliancepartspros.com. As you can see, I removed the supports so the whole tub surface will touch the floor. And next we're going to put a thin film of liquid soap on the bearing, spread it around, and then we can put it in. Level it, and then start it. Push in, and then using a plastic hammer, we can start pounding it in. At this point, I'll show you a little different technique. We can use the old bearing, put it on the top of the new bearing, and probably going to use gloves. I cherish my fingers. And we're going to use a heavy metal hammer. Before installing the inner bearing, we're going to put that piece of wood, something like a cutting board, on the floor. Then I'm going to turn over the tub and put that bearing and an insert on the wood. That will protect the metal from the hard surface. Same procedure as the outer bearing. We need to make sure that the seat is perfectly clean. Then we take a bearing and put a little soap on it. Installing the bearing. And now we can use the plastic mallet. Hammer it in slowly. And now the time for the old bearing. and a heavier hammer. That's it. It's in. Next, we're going to put a gasket in. Okay, here is the gasket. We're going to start with putting a little bit of the liquid soap on it. Okay, and now we're going to place it in the opening. Make sure it's leveled, and then start pushing it in with your fingers. And now let's lift it up and put it on the supports. The rest is just a piece of cake. Simply pull all the parts together so you can call them a washer again. Start with installing the inner basket into the outer tub bearings. Slowly lower it down and turn it to get it seated all the way in. Check the condition of the tub seal. Replace it if needed. The part number for the seal is 4036ER4001B as in boy, and it's available at appliancepartspros.com. Inspect and clean the seat if required. When putting the top halves together, make sure the heater is inserted into the bracket and then install the top. After that, turn the inner basket to make sure it's free. Match the holes and put all the bolts in. Using the 10mm socket wrench with a long extension, tighten the bolts, starting with the opposite ones. I know it takes a while, so read a book or call someone on the phone. Now we can install the tub assembly into the cabinet. It will help if you put it in correctly with the top of the tub facing the up of the cabinet there. So let's slowly take your time. It's heavy. All right. Next would be installing the suspension springs. Remove the spring of the cabinet, position it so the upper hook is facing the cabinet, and insert its bottom hook into the tub mount. Place the rope under the hook and install the upper hook into the holder. Lock the spring holder. Repeat the procedure on the opposite side. Always start with the side where the heater box is. Now the front shock absorbers. Put the shock absorber into the tub socket. Align the holes and insert the hinge pin all the way so the tab locks at the back. Repeat the procedure on the other side. Move to the rear of the washer and install the third shock absorber. Now we are going to move to the front again and connect the wires to the heater. You may refer to the picture that you took earlier. First, put the green ground wire on the terminal and secure it with a nut using the 10mm socket wrench. Then the red wire goes on the left terminal, the yellow wire goes on the right terminal, and the 2-wire temperature sensor plug in the middle. Secure the harness to the top with a zip tie. Cut the extra with the side cutters. Connect the 2 hoses to the circulation pump, one with a blue stripe at the rear. Using the pliers, slide down the hose clamp. And the one with the red line at the front. Using the pliers, slide down the hose clamp. The weights are the next. Install the lower counterweight and secure to the 4 bolts using the 10 mm socket wrench. Install the upper counterweight and secure to the 3 10 mm bolts, left to right. The last bolt is the number 3 Phillips head. Lock the small red retainer tab into the cutout in the front brace. Connect the red wire plug behind the brace. Install the door boot seal connector onto the heater housing vent and using the Phillips screwdriver, tighten the bracket. Slide the top hose onto the door boot seal port and using the pliers, slide the clamp to secure the connection. Now we can move to the rear of the washer again. Install the bellow on the left onto the top and using the 7 mm socket wrench, tighten the clamp. And install the sump hose. Push it onto the top connector and using the Phillips screwdriver, tighten the clamp. Install the air chamber, match the holes and secure it with the 2 Phillips screws. Connect the air hose. Bring the stator assembly and plug in the 2 plugs, the motor and the rotor positioning sensor. Install the stator on and secure it using the 6 10 mm bolts and the socket wrench. Start with tightening the opposing bolts, turning them clockwise. Secure the wire harness to the top with the 4 Phillips screws and the cover at the top. Match the splines and install the rotor onto the shaft. Rock it side to side. Don't try to push it all the way in if it's not going. We'll push it on by tightening the bolt. Squeeze some thread locking liquid on and install the bolt, turning it manually for the first few threads. Then using the 17 mm socket wrench and the flat blade screwdriver, tighten it. Install the rear access panel and secure it with the 4 Phillips screws. Switch to the top. Okay, let's put the funnel in first. And now I can put the hose on. And then tighten the clamp with a 7 mm socket wrench. Insert the float assembly into the center of the vent opening. And then we're going to install the vent hose back on. Okay. And now we're going to use a 70 mm socket wrench to tighten the clamp. Place the inner boot seal clamp in the groove and check if it's in completely. Install the clamp pliers into the spring loops and squeeze the pliers to spread the spring. Hold the upper portion of the clamp with the Torx screwdriver and place the spring onto the hook. It may not work the first time. Try it again. After the clamp is installed, remove the pliers and the screwdriver and visually check if the clamp is in the groove. Pull hard on the boot seal to see if it's properly installed. Using the pliers, squeeze the clamps, place them on the door boot seal ports and install hoses on the sides of the boot seal. Install the drain hose and using the pliers, secure it at the bottom of the seal. Now we can reassemble the washer. Bring the front panel and install it on the bottom hinges. Make sure the pump drain hose is in the opening. Rotate the front panel up and secure it to the cabinet with the 6 screws using the Phillips screwdriver. Now the control panel. Insert the wires into the opening and install the bottom panel tabs into cutouts in the panel and push the top to lock the upper tabs. Secure the panel with the Phillips screw at the top right corner. Connect the 3 wire plugs and lock the harness into the retainers. Install the dispenser housing. Make sure the front end is locked in around the opening in the control panel. Secure it with the 2 Phillips screws. Slide the drawer in. Install the top panel. Place it on the cabinet just about 1.5 inches away from the front. Slide it forward to lock the tabs. Secure the top panel with the 2 Phillips screws at the back. And then we can install the switch. Match that switch inlet with the cutout and secure it with 2 Phillips screws. All right, now we're going to install the boot seal over the door frame lip. Make sure it's installed all around. Do the visual check. All right, now we can install the clamp. We're going to use the clamp tool. First, we're going to put this tool into the loops at the end of the spring. Hold it. And we're going to install the top into the groove. Keep the spring at 6 o'clock. Then spread it. And install the clamp in the groove. And again, make a visual check. And then pull hard on the boot seal. Make sure it's not going to come off. All right. Now we're going to close the door. Install the single Phillips screw at the bottom of the drain pump filter door. Install the door housing Slide the hose into the cutout and secure it with a Phillips screw. Plug the drain hose. Place the drain hose in the holder. Install the filter door on the hinges and close it. Turn the water on. Plug the washer back in and make sure there's no leaks. Thank you for being a part of another successful repair brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. For any of your future appliance repair projects, please check out our other repair videos available on our site, on Facebook, and on YouTube.